One bird, one buyer, $1,900,000. Not a flock, not a farm, not a barn full of livestock. One racing pigeon, small enough to sit in the palm of your hand, sold to a single buyer in a single afternoon. And here's the part that stops people cold. That pigeon is not even the most expensive animal on this list. This video is about 7 animals where a single sale, one creature handed to one buyer, clears $1,000. Some of them top out around $1,500. One of them has changed hands for close to $2 million. And almost every one of them can be raised in a spare bedroom, a backyard tank, or a climate-controlled cupboard. No acreage, no barn. And on several of them, no permit at all. Here is what every animal in this video has in common. Each one sells for 2 completely different prices. There is the commodity price, what a random, undocumented version is worth at the bottom of the market. And there is the documented price, what a pedigreed, paper-trailed, show-proven version of the exact same animal commands at the top. The distance between those 2 numbers is not luck, and it is not hype. It is the entire business. Every single sale over $1,000 on this list comes down to one word: provenance. A lineage somebody wrote down. Every figure you are about to hear is tied to a named operator in a named place with a verified sale. This is not projection. This is documentation. Let us count them down. Number 7. The all-black chicken that sells for the price of a used car payment. The Ayam Cemani is an Indonesian breed caused by a genetic trait called fibromelanosis, and it is black the whole way through. Black feathers, black skin, black bones, even a black beak and a black tongue. A show-quality adult sells for $2,500. One bird. Greenfire Farms in Florida was the original importer back in 2014, and they still set the market. Day-old chicks at $69 to $99 each, hatching eggs at $18 to $22 apiece. Now follow the curve. A chick is under $100. The same bird, grown out, proven true to type and exhibition grade, is 25 times that. It takes the better part of a year to grow a chick out to a sellable show adult, and that wait is the whole reason the grown bird is worth so much more, because somebody else absorbed the time and the risk. The buyers are collectors and serious breeders who want clean foundation stock, and they pay for one thing above all: confirmed lineage with no gray skin and no hidden crossbreeding. A breeding trio of true black birds is the real engine, because every clutch they throw is potential foundation stock for the next operator who wants in. The legal side is light. These are birds. NPIP certification, a $50 registration plus roughly 10 cents per bird for pylorium typhoid testing, unlocks interstate sales. And that is the whole compliance picture. The biggest mistake people make is buying cheap Ayam Cemani from discount hatcheries. Most of them are crosses with gray-toned skin or red-tinged combs, and a cross will never sell at the top of this market. You buy cheap once, and you are locked out of the only price that matters. Next up, an animal that never grows up, dies if your room gets a few degrees too warm, and sells in pairs for the price of a holiday abroad. Number 6. Axolotls. The axolotl is a salamander that never metamorphoses. It keeps its feathery external gills and its permanent little grin for 15 years, and it has become one of the most collected creatures in the entire exotic hobby. A single premium breeding pair sells for $800 to $2,500. The reason the ceiling climbs is color. Common wild-type axolotls trade for $25 to $40. Leucistic ones, the pale pink kind with black eyes, run $75 to $150. Melanoid, copper, and the glowing firefly morphs climb from there, and a documented breeding pair, both parents genetically certified with a written lineage card, is what clears $1,000 in one sale. A breeder in California runs 24 tanks in a garage, and sells proven pairs on the strength of that paperwork alone, with a waiting list of buyers who follow specific bloodlines. The market behind this is the bioactive aquarium hobby, and it has gone from niche to mainstream in just a few years, which means a steady stream of new keepers who all want something nobody else has on the shelf. That is exactly what a rare morph delivers. The breeder who documents every pairing builds a name, and a name is what lets you charge $2,000 for a pair, while the shop down the road struggles to move wild types at $30. The classification is simple. They are aquatic amphibians, no federal livestock rules, shipped live overnight in an insulated box. The catch is temperature. Axolotls start dying above 72 degrees Fahrenheit, so anywhere with a warm summer needs a chiller on the tank. The biggest mistake is twofold: launching with wild-type animals that compete in the $25 bargain bin and trusting a hot garage in July. Lose the temperature for one afternoon and you lose the entire spawn. Coming up, a rodent the size of a kitten, with fur so dense that no parasite can live in it, and a single baby that sells for more than most people's monthly rent. Number 5. Chinchillas. A chinchilla has the densest fur of any land mammal on Earth, around 60 hairs growing from a single follicle. And that fur is exactly why the rare ones are worth a fortune. Standard gray chinchillas sell for $300 to $500. Black velvet, $500 to $600. Blue diamond crosses $1,000. And the Royal Persian Angora, the long-coated show line, sells for $1,500 to $4,000 for a single kit, with national exhibition champions reaching $15,000. One animal. Carolina Chinchilla Ranch, run by Tiffany, an ECBC-sanctioned judge in North Carolina, publishes exactly those numbers. KGC Chinchillas in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, took Reserve National Grand Show champion at the 2024 MCBA Nationals. And a title like that resets the price of every animal in the room. The show circuit is the engine of the whole thing. Judges grade these animals on coat density, clarity, and conformation. And a placing at a national show is a public, verifiable record that follows that bloodline for years. That is why a champion's kit sells before it is even weaned. The buyer is not paying for a pet. They are paying for a piece of a winning line they can build their own herd from. And a chinchilla usually has just 1 or 2 kits at a time, so supply is naturally tight. Chinchillas die above 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which sounds like a problem and is actually the whole advantage. They cannot live outdoors in most of the country, so they live indoors, stacked vertically in a climate-controlled spare room. No acreage, no zoning fight. The biggest mistake is launching with standard grays. Grays compete against hundreds of backyard sellers and a pet shop price ceiling. Rare morphs compete in a national show market where one win pays for the whole operation. Next, an animal that weighs over 1,000 pounds jumps a 6-foot fence from a standing start, and where a single animal sold the right way clears $4,000. Number 4. American bison. This is the giant on the list, and the maths is completely different from everything before it. You are not selling fur or feathers. You are selling an animal that finishes at over 1,000 pounds. North Star Bison in Wisconsin runs a herd of around 700 head direct to consumer. Wild Idea Buffalo in South Dakota, run by Dan O'Brien, crossed $1 million in documented revenue and earned regenerative organic certification, while Cook's Bison Ranch in Indiana pulls in thousands of agritourism visitors a year on top of meat sales. Here is the single sale number. Sold commodity, through the auction barn, a finished bison brings about $1,500. Sold direct, as a half or a whole animal to a family who books it in advance, that same bison nets $3,000 to $4,500. One animal, one buyer, one sale. And the difference between those two numbers is simply whether you found the customer first. The model that makes it work is the freezer share. A buyer commits to a half or a whole animal months ahead, pays a deposit, and collects the finished meat from the processor, which means no booth fees, no spoilage, and no middleman taking the margin. Sell 4 animals a year that way, and you have replaced a part-time wage from land that was doing nothing before. The legal angle is a genuine gift. Bison are non-amenable under the Federal Meat Inspection Act, which means producers can use voluntary state inspection and still ship that meat across state lines, something beef producers cannot do. The biggest mistake is fencing. A bison jumps 5 to 6 feet from a standstill and goes straight through weak wire, and inadequate fencing is the #1 documented beginner failure. Build the fence before you buy the animal. Next, an animal that turns 6 pounds of milk a day into a cheese that retails for $35 a ball, where a single live animal is worth thousands before it produces a single drop. Number 3. Water buffalo. A dairy water buffalo produces milk at 8% butterfat, more than double what a dairy cow gives. And 1 liter of that milk makes a single 250-gram ball of buffalo mozzarella that retails for $35 at Whole Foods. But forget the cheese for a moment, because the theme here is the single sale, and the live water buffalo is the single sale. There are only a few thousand dairy water buffalo in the entire United States, which is precisely why a single-bred heifer is so expensive. You cannot just order a crate of them. Breeding stock is scarce, demand outstrips supply, and one animal changes hands for several $1,000s before it has produced a single drop of milk. Riverine Ranch, run by Brian and Courtney Foley in New Jersey, sells at the New York City Green Market and runs a customer waiting list. And Iroko Creamery in Texas has expanded to a 3rd location. The vertical maths is the reason the animal is worth so much. 1 buffalo gives 1,800 pounds of milk in a lactation. Sold as raw milk wholesale at $5 a pound, that is $9,000 a year. Turned into mozzarella at $27 a pound retail, the same animal's milk is worth $20,000 a year. A breeder is not selling you a cow. They are selling you a $20,000 a year machine, and they price the animal accordingly. The warnings are real, though. Operations that bought the animals before they had a route to market or before they had nailed the cheese making have closed. The animal cannot save a dairy that cannot sell what the animal produces. The biggest mistake is buying the animal before you have the license to sell the product. A creamery license is the value multiplier here. Without it, you own an expensive lawn ornament with a very large feed bill. Coming up at number 2, a fish that started in a pond the size of a parking space and sold all by itself for $35,000. Number 2, koi. 1 fish, $35,000. Quality Koi Company in New Jersey has sold a single koi for exactly that figure, and the 2017 world record, a kohaku, sold for $1.8 million. The startup barrier is real, the ceiling is enormous, and the gap between the two is everything. A 4 to 6 inch pond koi at a farm like Hanover Koi is about $40. An 8 to 10 inch fish is $70. A 14 to 16 inch fish is $165, and a 20 to 22 inch showfish is $250 and climbing fast from there. Butterfly-finned fish command 1.5 to 2 times standard pricing. The difference between a $25 koi and a $35,000 koi is one breeding decision made 3 years before the fish was ever offered for sale, plus a Japanese bloodline a judge can recognize across a show pond. Klubeck Koi Farm in Iowa runs dozens of mud ponds to grow that quality on. In Japan, the best fish move through auctions where serious collectors bid into the tens of thousands for a single young fish with the right pattern and the right breeder behind it. And that same culture is now growing in the West. The patience is the part you cannot shortcut. 60 to 70% of a koi farm's whole year of income arrives in a few months of spring and summer, and a show-grade fish takes years of careful culling to reveal itself. Koi are classified as ornamental fish, so there is no meat inspection and no agricultural zoning anywhere in the country. But nearly every state requires an aquaculture permit to sell ornamental fish commercially. and California, Florida, Texas, and Minnesota each have their own application and fee. That is information you need before you buy, not a reason to walk away. The biggest mistake is starting with cheap genetics. Cheap parents produce commodity fry that compete in the $25 tier against farms breeding 500,000 fish a year, and in that tier, you always lose. Finally, number 1. The animal I opened with. The one that fits in your hand and has sold for more than a beachfront house. Number 1. Racing pigeons. In November 2020, a Belgian racing pigeon named New Kim sold for $1,900,000. A year earlier, a bird called Armando sold for $1.25 million. These are not the prices of meat or feathers. They are the prices of proven speed and a written pedigree. Here is the classification almost nobody knows. The USDA explicitly excludes pigeons and doves from the federal poultry definition. No NPIP testing, no mandatory avian influenza surveillance. They sit in a regulatory blind spot. In the United States, Seagull Pigeons in Louisiana, run by Ed Minviel, sells Janssen-based pedigree racing stock, and Pigeon Farms in Lakewood, California, lists birds by name and bloodline. 20 good breeding pairs produce 160 to 200 offspring a year. And at $300 a bird for documented stock, that is $60,000 a year off a structure smaller than a garden shed. The buyers driving those record prices are largely in Asia, where pigeon racing is a high-stakes sport with prize pots that dwarf the price of the birds. So a proven bloodline is treated like a thoroughbred stallion. You do not need a $1 million bird to make this work. A loft of solid, documented racers throwing well-bred youngsters at a few $100s each is a real, repeatable income, and every race a youngster wins quietly raises the value of its parents. The gap between a $15 park pigeon and a $300 or $300,000 racing pigeon has exactly one explanation: documented race results. A bird with no record is worth pennies. A bird that has won, or whose parents have won, is worth whatever the next buyer will pay. The biggest mistake is buying birds with no documented results and hoping the bloodline carries them. In this hobby, the paperwork is the animal. So look at what actually connects all 7. The Ayam Cemani, the axolotl, the chinchilla, the bison, the water buffalo, the koi, the pigeon. Not one of them is expensive because of what it is. A pigeon is a pigeon. A gray chinchilla and a royal Persian Angora eat the exact same food. The thing that turns a $40 koi into a $35,000 koi or a $15 pigeon into a $1 million pigeon is documentation. A lineage somebody recorded. A show result somebody can verify. A breeding decision somebody made years before the sale and wrote down. That is the only difference, and it is a difference anyone can build because it costs nothing but discipline and time. So if you are starting from nothing, do not start with the bison or the buffalo. Start with the cheapest entry that still has a 4-figure ceiling. Axolotls or exhibition poultry both get you in for a few $100s. Both ship live nationwide, and both reward the one habit that runs through this entire list: documenting every animal you breed, every parent, every line, so that the day a buyer asks where it came from, you already have the answer written down. That answer is the $1,000. Then, only once that first line is documented and selling, layer the next animal on top, one paper trail at a time. The operators clearing real money on this list did not start with the $2 million bird. They started with one cheap animal and one habit, and they kept the records. Drop a comment right now and tell me which of these 7 surprised you the most: the all-black chicken, the $2 million pigeon, the 1,000-pound bison, and tell me which one you would actually start with. because the right answer is genuinely different for an apartment, a backyard, and a few acres. I read every comment, and your answers shape the next video. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because next week I am breaking down the exact paperwork and lineage system that lets a complete beginner sell their very first animal at the top of the market instead of the bottom. That one is already in production. I will see you there.